Guys, we are back. Hope things are going well with your assignments that you're working on. We are going to keep building. We're building on that mean and standard deviation. So last week we kind of just did some basics. Okay, now we're going to actually apply this. Probably do two videos of this, but we're going to do a mean and standard deviation and then talk about what those numbers mean. Okay. So again, I don't think this is super hard, but it's kind of long. Okay, so remember, the first thing we do is find the mean. Okay, which again, you did this back in middle school. Okay, shouldn't be too hard. Now, I got some data from the textbook. These are like the number of hurricanes per decade. So like for a 10-year period in the U.S. So the first decade, there was 19, second decade, 15, and so on. Okay, so these are 10 different decades of the number of hurricanes that hit the U.S. I think they had to be like a category 2 or higher. So obviously there's little hurricanes that don't do much, but these are like higher level hurricanes. So over a 10-year period, there was 19, 15, and a lot of you are familiar with hurricanes. I mean, we have them every year. Thankfully, we don't deal with them in Ohio, but if you live down in Florida or the South, you deal with those. So anyway, so here's the number of hurricanes. We're going to find the mean. So again, grab your calculator. 19 plus 15 plus 20 plus 22 plus 21 plus 18 plus 21 plus 13 plus 19 and plus 24. Okay, total up. Okay, 192. Remember, like an average, you divide by the number of numbers. Okay, there's 10 decades, so divide by 10. Now this one I can do in my head. Remember, guys, a little shortcut. Dividing by 10 just moves the decimal. So 19.2. So 192 becomes 19.2. Again, that's just a little shortcut. Now, if you remember from the last video, now we need to find that variance and standard deviation for these 10 numbers. Okay? So again, I'm going to have to kind of write sort of small so I can fit everything on here. Okay, but we should have plenty of room. So remember, guys, the data point minus the mean. Data point minus the mean. Okay, data point minus the mean. Okay, so on. Okay, I'm going to move pretty quick through this because we don't want to. I found out the videos can only be 15 minutes. So I did a video, I think, for pre-calc that went longer, and it cut off, and I had to redo it. So I'm going to keep moving here. I mean, this is stuff we've already done on the last video. Remember, guys, we can get negatives. But remember, we square them, so we square off the negatives. 13, 19, minus 19.2. Now, some of these numbers that repeat, I mean, we can go a little faster through those. Okay, so again, 19 minus 9.2, okay, that's going to be negative 0.2. 15 minus 19.2, I can kind of do this in my head, negative 4.2. 20 minus 19.2, okay, that's going to be 0.8. 22 minus 19.2, typed it in wrong, okay, 19.2, okay, 2.8. 21 minus 19.2, okay, I can do that in my head because that's one less. 1.8, 18 minus that, negative 1.2. Okay, 21 we already did, 1.8. 13 minus 9.2, okay, negative 6.2. Kind of do that in my head. Okay, 19 minus that, we already did. Negative 0.2, and 24 minus 19.2, okay, 4.8. Okay, now if you remember, guys, we're going to square each of these. And again, remember, the negatives need to be considered in parentheses. So again, we're going to square each of these. Okay, now I'm going to go quickly through that. Again, use your calculator. Okay, so negative 0.2 squared. Okay, remember these are going to be positive 0.4. Okay, negative 4.2 squared. Okay, this one's big, 17.64. Okay, 0.8 squared. 0.64. Okay, 2.8 squared. 7.84. Okay, 1.8 squared. 3.24. Okay, negative 1.2 squared. 1.44. Okay, 1.8 squared we already did, so that's 3.24. Okay, negative 6.2 squared. Again, make sure it's in parentheses, 38.44. Okay, negative 0.2 squared we already did up here, 0.04. And then 4.8 squared. Okay, 23.04. Okay, now again, this is kind of long, but now we're just going to add all these up. So 0.04 plus 17.64. Just be really careful typing these in, because you type in one thing wrong, it's going to be off. Okay, I'm on 7.84. Excuse me. Thank you. Okay, plus 3.24 plus 1.44 plus 3.24 plus 38.44 plus 0.04 plus 23.04. Okay, so again, we're totaling all these up. Okay, 95.6. Okay, but guys, remember, we have 10 variances here, so kind of like we did with the mean, we're going to divide that by 10. Okay, now again, that just moves the decimal point, not minus, divide right there. Okay, so that just moved the decimal point over 1, but then remember, to get standard deviation, the last step is square root that. Okay, so second x squared, okay, 9.56. And again, we're going to stay one decimal, 3.09, so 3.1. Okay, so that is actually our standard deviation, 3.1. Okay, now guys, one last thing. Hopefully we don't run out of time here. Let me look at the time. Oh, we're good. We're only 9 minutes. Okay, that was a lot of work, but I wanted to, so now let's apply this standard deviation. So guys, what we have is, let's say we have the whole line of data. Okay, now again, you can make like a number line from the lowest 13 up to 24. So 13 up to 24. Okay, I mean, they're not asking you to graph these on our exam, so I'm not going to worry about that. But I do want you to kind of understand. So what's happening in the middle, that 19.2, okay, which is the mean, is right there in the middle. Okay, so that's the middle of the data. Okay, and then remember, this is plus and minus because the standard deviation up would be up a positive 3.1. Okay, which if I add 3.1 to my mean, the standard deviation point is 22.3. See that? So my upper standard deviation point is 22.3. 19.2 plus 3.1. Okay, that's where 22.3 comes in. And then my lower standard deviation point, which that's where the negative comes in. I'm going to minus 3.1 from my mean. Okay, and that's going to be 16.1. Okay, so again, now guys, this is used in a lot of statistical things. Again, some of you, a lot of jobs, you're analyzing data, you're going to figure out different things. So a lot of people will apply this to the future job that they have, depending on what you do. Now, here's some data that we want to make sure we understand. So what happens, guys, in the middle of that standard deviation points, they say that automatically 68% of the people should fall in the middle there, 68%. Okay, so in between the two standard deviation points, there's 68% of the data. Okay, that's a fact about standard deviation. So if we went and did, another 10 years of hurricanes, 68, again, this is kind of on average, 68% of them should fall in between 16.1 and 22.3, according to our data. So now here's the thing. So we know the whole thing is 100%, right? So if 68% is in that middle section, then what's left over? 100 minus 68, okay, that's 32%. But we know we have to divide 32% onto one side and 32% on the other side, divided into two pieces. So 32% divided by 2 is 16%. So 16% on average of the data would be above 22.3, and 16% of the data would be below 16.1. So again, if we looked at hurricanes and figured out what hurricanes, for the next 10 years, we would say on average 68% of them will fall in between these two standard deviation points. And then you're going to have about 16% that's a little bit lower than that standard deviation point, and another 16% that's a little bit above that standard deviation point. Now you can see how this would apply to a lot of different things. If you were taking surveys of people and different, like how many hours of sleep they get. I mean, there's a lot of data collection. I mean, you see that all the time on the news. They say, this many percentage of this many people said this, and especially now with all this virus stuff, I mean, you're going to see a lot of data things. Okay, so again, these are going to be some numbers. So 68% in the middle, which puts then 16% on each end. Okay, we're going to do another one of these on the next video. So guys, what I want you to do for tonight, or for this a problem, see if you can just do the standard deviation. Okay, you don't really have to do this number line thing, but right here, finish with the standard deviation point, and that's where we'll stop. So find the mean, do all your math here. So just give me the standard deviation point for your points, okay, and put that in the journal on the post part, okay? So again, there's your data. I've given you 8 data points, okay? Now that's a 37. So number 1's 42, number 2 is 37. I know my 7 looks a little weird. I think the rest of the numbers are pretty obvious, okay? So again, I just made up some data. You're going to do the same kind of steps with that data. Okay, take care, guys. We'll see you next time.